have to, or they live in a hypertonic environment, so they're in danger of dehydration all the time. And freshwater fish live in a hypotonic, and they have to be careful with that. So their internal mechanisms help regulate the balances of the water and the salts. They have a swim bladder, which helps them with buoyancy, and they have jaws and teeth, which are in, and they also have pharyngeal jaws. And it's a second set of jaws in the throat that chews up food and moves it down the esophagus into the stomach. They reproduce by spawning. And spawning is when the female lays the eggs and the males fertilize it with sperm. And this is external fertilization. Okay. Some still use internal fertilization, laying their eggs in an egg case. It's called a mermaid's purse. This is typical of sharks. A few reproduce asexually. And they reproduce by parthenogenesis. This is typical of bonnethead shark. They will, females will reproduce asexually only when they're unable to mate with a male, which is, interesting. All right. So functioning in the environment, they have different niches. Some are herbivores or herbivores. Some attack other animals or humans, but it's very important to maintain and properly manage aquatic resources, because 71% about of the earth is covered in water. And we haven't explored about 90% of the water or more. They say we only know about 5% of what's going on in the ocean. So who knows what's out there? It can be very interesting. There's a practice in, proper management. A lot of people hunt sharks or animals for food, and fish are included. There is a practice for some shark species to be hunted for their fins. It's an Asian delicacy, and what they'll do is they'll cut off the dorsal fin, and then they'll throw the shark back into the water while it's still alive. And of course, the shark cannot swim. Okay, this is frowned upon, and they're people are trying to get this stopped. It doesn't really do much for the food. It's more just for the texture of the food as opposed to taste. So it's not good. Don't eat shark fin soup. It's not good. All right, amphibians. Okay, so amphibians live part of their life. They make part of their life on the water. Usually they're born there, and then they live part of their life on land. Okay, they are tetrapods, which means they have 4 limbs. Okay, remember fish are limbless or legless. Amphibians have 4 legs, okay, or 4 limbs. There are 3 orders I want you to be familiar with. I want you to be familiar with the frogs and toads. They are in the order Anura. The Thessalians, okay, are legless. They look like snakes, but they're in the order Gymnophiona. And then salamanders are in the order Caudata. Okay, so frogs, these guys are jumpers. Okay, Sicilians are legless, and salamanders, their limbs are kind of positioned out away from their body. Okay, and the thing about amphibians is they do go through some kind of metamorphosis to transition between aquatic life and land life. They have a thin, moist, permeable skin, which means they breathe through their skin, can function as respiration. On land, they secrete mucus to keep moist. Buccal pumping helps move air through the lungs. They have a 3-chambered heart, 2 atria, and a ventricle. Most adult amphibians are carnivorous. They have a digestive system consisting of stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and a cloaca. And a cloaca is that is the opening that allows waste to be passed through it. They have a central nervous system and a peripheral nervous system. Central composes of the brain and the spinal cord. It's enclosed in the skull and the vertebrae. The peripheral nervous system is the one that deals with the sensory organs, the legs, and the appendages and stuff like that. They are ectothermic, and when there are extremes in temperature, they will enter a state of torpor through 2 processes, either called estivating. Okay, basically, frogs that live in very hot places, they'll burrow into the mud and kind of wait it out. The mud keeps them cool. And where it's really, really, really cold, they'll hibernate. Frogs will hibernate in the ground. Reproduction. They have amplexus. Okay, this is where the male grasps the female from on top and behind. And that frogs have external fertilization in or near the water. The female lays the eggs. The males fertilize them externally. Salamanders have internal fertilization. The larvae, okay, look very different from the parents. In frogs, there are tadpoles, and then as they develop, they'll get their legs and lose their tail through a process called metamorphosis. The amount of parental care that's provided differs between different species. Okay, there are some that just leave their eggs alone. Others carry them around. And there's still another species, the Sumatra toad. The eggs fuse to a thick piece of skin on her back. I think I posted a video on it. It looks kind of creepy, but it's actually pretty neat because the baby frogs develop in her protection, and so they're more likely to survive. So, how valuable are frogs? Okay, they're important to the food chain in their ecosystem. They can be greatly beneficial. They eat insects and other pests, snakes and stuff like that, insects. And it's always nice listening to, at least I think so, listening to frogs and toads in the evening when it's warm, and you'll just hear their little creaks and croaks and stuff like that. But you have to be careful because, that's just personal preference. And they can also eliminate pests that bring diseases. So, frogs are good. Okay. Now, one thing I was watching, I think it was